inside the off stump. Oh, he's caught it! I don't believe it! Tom Kohler-Cadmore has caught the most magnificent catch. At short third man, it's the end of Daniel Sams, and Somerset have won the Vitality Blast 2023. They've bowled Essex out for 131.
Hello there, this is Always Look on the Bright Side of Life, a Somerset Cricket podcast. My name's Ian Shepherd. Joining me this evening is a man who has seen more super overs in England than you have, Dan Kingdom. Dan, how you going this week? Recovered from the thrill a minute of our draw against Nottinghamshire?
Well, I was lucky. I was in the office on Tuesday and Wednesday, so I didn't actually see too much of the latter part of the match, and I don't think I missed much.
No, you certainly did. Well, there were some interesting tidbits to pull out of there. And also joining me this evening is President of the club, Sir Peter Wanless. Peter, I gather you didn't get to the county ground at all over the 4 days. You lucky old sod, you.
Yeah, it's a strange week to have me on. It's one of the few games I've been to none of. But having said that, I watched vast amounts of the live stream, so I've heard pretty much anything and everything that Peter Trigo and Vic Marks have got to say about anything, and more than I need to know about Harry Everett's performances in the Baker Cup semi-final.
Well, I think given the lack of anything really moving along in that game at any sort of pace, it was definitely a week for the commentators on the live stream to dig into the memory banks or look around the county of Somerset for anything else going on cricket-wise. It was, of course, the second game of this batch, which is being played with Rob Key's favourite torture device, the Kookaburra ball. So we'll just recap what happened in the game then. Craig Overton, who was standing in for Lewis Gregory, won the toss, decided to bat. Sunday was the only day I was there. Were you there on Sunday? You were there on Sunday as well, Dan, weren't you? I bumped into you on the way out. Yeah. I mean, it was sort of attritional stuff. I mean, being hypercritical, you could possibly say that Somerset could maybe have tried to be a little bit more enterprising, but I think it was very much the early rounds of a boxing match, if you like. You weren't really sure how the game was going to set up, and it was very much a safety first approach, I guess.
Yeah, and I don't think, and I think Notts bowled very well as well. I think we would have scored quicker if we could have. We're that kind of team that does look to move things on, particularly at Taunton. But I think the combination of the conditions and the way Notts bowled just meant we weren't really able to score that quickly. And obviously we lost a few early wickets as well, including TKC, which didn't help. You know, Tom Abel's not been in the best of form recently, and neither has Banton. So perhaps there was an element of that in there as well. They weren't quite able to, they didn't sort of feel confident enough to bat at their usual pace. And obviously we sort of steadily lost wickets, didn't we, as well, which just, and ultimately that contributed to us getting a below par score really in the first innings. You know, 379 against the Kookaburra in those conditions wasn't great. And while it was potentially competitive, unfortunately Notts were able to sail past our score, and that killed any prospect of us winning the game.
Yeah, I think Abel and Banton potentially recognising that the old adage of you can't score runs in the pavilion really kind of applied here in a game that if we did lose, that's absolute curtains effectively for the championship charge. Drawing it's not ideal, but I think we're just about hanging on by a thread. I mean, watching it from afar, Peter, what were your sort of thoughts on the first couple of days?
Yeah, I as we were batting, I did think, you know, like you, this is a bit slower than normal. But then Brett Hutton's got a great record against us. Mohamed Abbas is no mug. I suppose I was saying to myself, well, this isn't too bad because none of their bowlers are as good as Matt Henry or Jack Leach. So surely anything that Notts can get out of this, we can do even more so. So I was feeling quite optimistic, even though, yeah, the score felt a bit light. And, you know, what did we got? 2 batting points out of a possible 5, which again, if you're being hypercritical, you think, well, in these Kookaburra games, we need to pile up the batting points if we possibly can. So yeah, it was a little bit disappointing, but yeah, it was Somerset, and it's always nice to watch Somerset. And it was good, hopefully, to see Abe's and Tom Banton batting themselves back into a bit of form and spending some time out there, and let's hope that kind of pays dividends in due course. Bit of a nightmare for Sean Dixon, wasn't it? I mean, it was
Yeah,
quite surprising to see him come back in and open, and you can't help feeling that will he get another chance now?
well, yeah. I mean, I'm becoming more and more of a fan of Tom Kohler-Cadmore actually opening the batting in red ball cricket, because I think I made the point a few weeks ago when Davey and Gregory first took over at the top of the order, that part of it is being confident in your own game, knowing your own game, and just going out there and batting. And it's an old adage is, oh, we'll just bat. But if you're not feeling confident, if you're not sure of your method or technique at that level, it's very difficult to do that. But TKC does. I mean, it's brilliant to watch him on the final day, because he managed to A, block the shit out of it for the draw, and B, hit 6 sixes, including one over the top of the media centre into the car park. So, I mean, to be able to kind of sort of merge those two methods of play together was fantastic. But he knows his game, he knows how to play, he knows how to go about his business. And then you kind of contrast that with Dixon, who, with that shot he played to a Bass, no, wasn't it Bass? Was it Bass? No, it was Hutton, where he just sort of wandered across to off stump, and then he tried to sort of round his pad, and that just sort of seems to me to be sort of really kind of muddled thinking. Whereas you contrast that with TKC knowing his game, I think he's looking like a really solid option for us now. And Mrs. Gregory has finally well, not finally given birth, but she has given birth now. So Lewis is back in the squad for Glamorgan tomorrow, and you think for the championship as well. So potentially now we're going to be looking at Lewis Gregory and Tom Kohler-Cadmore to be yet another opening partnership to add to the T-shirt / I'm not sure what I called that thing I did, but I think it's a mesh diagram.
It's very good.
But will that be 29th, I think, opening partnership?
Yep.
I mean, there's a little while to go before that, but that's certainly where I think it looks like the smart money should be.
I think Mr. Gregory might be hoping that Mrs. Gregory finds a few more chores around the house for the next two Kookaburra games, and that there might be some extended paternity leave or a little kind of niggle. I don't think Lewis likes the ball very much, does he?
Well, I think Gregory the batter likes it. I'm not sure about Gregory
That's
the bowler.
true.
But,
that's true.
Yeah. I mean, has he kind of stuck his hand up and got the job now for the foreseeable? Or is this kind of a false mirage oasis that's being created by the Kookaburra?
Well, the next two rounds are Kookaburra as well, so I'm sure TKC will open in those. And then after that, I mean, I suspect there's a good chance he'll open in September as well if he continues to have success. Yes, it will be with the Dukes again in September, but we can't exactly change it around if he's having success at the top of the order. I mean, he's had 2 centuries in 2 games, and we don't have many centuries by opening batters these days. Just a quick question: do we know why Davey missed this game? Was it a fitness issue? Was he injured, or?
He was jogging on and off with drinks and things, so I don't imagine it would have been a fitness issue. I think it may have been a selection one. The puzzler for me was Miguel Pretorius.
Yeah, I think we wanted to pay Casey. I think we wanted to give him another go, having played the first few games of the season, then obviously missed out subsequently in the championship. And also the fact that he's done well with Kookaburra before. They were the reasons I assumed that he came in. But yeah, unfortunately that selection didn't really work. Yeah. And he's struggling a lot at the moment. It's really sad to see.
I sort of compared him with how he was bowling against Worcester. I know it's difficult to sort of compare on the live stream, but it just looked to me like he was sort of falling over a bit more forward. Against Worcester, he was staying a little bit taller and a bit more upright. Against Notts this week, he just seemed to be going forward a little bit more. So I don't know whether that's something that he needs to work on or not. But I'm not a bowling coach, and watching him in the flesh is a lot different to kind of just trying to see it on the YouTube stream. And that's kind of what I thought. But yeah, it's a big call, because Miggy P did very well with the Kookaburra getting it to reverse up at Edgbaston last week. He's not played any blast cricket, so it's not like he needs a rest or anything like that. So it was a brave call, and listen, if it comes off, we all know Casey can be he's a girl with a card. He can be absolutely phenomenal on his day. But so it just wasn't quite his day this week, unfortunately. But another Casey Aldridge news. He has rejoined Durham on loan for the rest of the Blast, which is not surprising, I suppose, given that he was up there for the first half of the group stages. What else? Oh, sorry, Dan. What?
Just quickly, we could have picked both Mig and Casey and have Mig open the batting. We may as well have done, given how Dicko went.
Well, yeah. I mean, I love Sean Dixon. He's the hero of Edgbaston.
Yeah.
3 times out of 4 times he's played there for us. But is he? I mean, I don't see how we can realistically give any more chances opening. Can we?
It was a great opportunity, wasn't it? Really, for him, and having not taken it, it's going to be, it's going to be difficult. And as you say, why wouldn't you pick TKC for one of those slots?
Yeah, I mean, just a very sort of timid, both kind of dismissals. Really, the second innings were just sort of a timid little push forward to spin it, really get a stride in, and not good. I'd love him to succeed because we're desperate for somebody to sit their hand up and make the opening spot theirs. And I think kind of TKC's done that. He's sort of
I don't think Matt Henry made a convincing case for.
No,
opening,
I mean,
that'll be a one-off.
I've got thoughts on that, which I'm going to come on to later when we kind of chronologically get up to it in the sort of the course of the game. But Matt Henry did make a good case for it in the first innings. Bashing 49 unbeaten off 29 balls to see Somerset to 379 in the first innings. And then, Ben Slater and Jack Haynes taking the game away from us, really. It just seemed once that Kookaburra went soft, there didn't seem to be the little life that was in the pitch that there was on Sunday, on Monday. Wasn't much in it for the spinners. It was just slow. The turn wasn't really fast enough. I mean, it just seemed it was probably one of the. I mean, to say it was the second most dull day of watching Nottinghamshire bat at Taunton in the last couple of years is saying something. But yeah, I mean, it was not a great advert for cricket, and I think Somerset. I mean, Matt Henry may have been a little bit off his best, but I don't think we could have really done much more. Jack Leach bowled his heart out, 53 overs, 621. He would have come off with blood in his socks. Archie Vaughan taking 3. So clearly, it was for the spinners and not for the seamers. I mean, maybe this Kookaburra ball thing is kind of like a Hunger Games thing. We're going to make all the seamers bowl with it, and then the only 4 that are left alive at the end of the season are the 4 that go on and play for England overseas. All the rest have given up, retired, or injured or dead.
Well, do you want some Kookaburra related stats?
Go on.
Yes.
DC and Rob Key as well, please.
Well,
I'll let you go if you're long run a minute, but there was some absolute belters flying around social media this week about highest scores and all that. So I hope you've got a feast for it. Right, I'll shut up now. Floor is yours.
This is just the basic comparison of the Kookaburra and the Dukes over the last few years. So basically, with the Dukes, since the start of 2023, which was the first year we had some Kookaburra rounds, since the start of 2023, 57% of matches with the Dukes end in a positive result. And with the Kookaburra, it's 37% of matches that end in a positive result. There have been a couple of successful rounds in terms of positive results with the Kookaburra, because it's easy to forget. Somerset's wins against Durham and Surrey at Taunton last year were both with the Kookaburra. And across those rounds in the whole country, so across the 18 matches across those 2 rounds, there were 12 positive results. So those 2 rounds of matches were a success in terms of getting results. And the difference with this year is that those rounds were played in late August, early September, when the pitches were more worn than they are now. And obviously, in contrast, the first 2 rounds of last season were also with the Kookaburra, and they only had 1 positive result out of 18 matches, although 2 of them were completely washed out by rain. The mid-season rounds in 2023 had 8 positive results out of 18, which isn't too bad, but still less than the percentage you get with the Dukes. And then the rounds we've had 5 positive results out of 18. So of the 4 batches of Kookaburra matches we've had so far, this was the second lowest in terms of positive results. So we have had more successful rounds, and the Kookaburra experiment has had, I think, some effect. It has had some success. But those 2 rounds last year, a lot of um, overs were bowled by spinners, a lot of wickets were taken by spinners. Whether that's because the ball suits spinners or because the ball does nothing for fast bowlers, therefore it kind of has to be the spinners bowling, who knows? I think it probably is more of that, to be honest. So I think it has been good in a way, perversely, in getting spinners bowling more. But overall, the cricket has been worse very clearly compared to the Dukes because there have been a lot more extremely high scoring draws. But I think that if the Kookaburra is going to continue, the evidence shows that the later in the season you play it, the better. And hopefully these 2 rounds in late July, I know they're not too far away, but the pitches will be a bit more worn then. There'll have been a bit of T20 cricket played before then. It'll be a bit later in the summer, so hopefully those 2 rounds are a little bit more conducive to actually getting a result. Because we want to see. Yeah,
I was quickly making the point that I'm sure the whole point of this experiment, if you're Rob Key, is to develop quick bowlers who can bowl reverse swing. So if you're playing on these pitches in August and September, all counties are going to do is look and go, well, I ain't got a 6'9" fast bowler who can bowl 85 mile an hour. I have got Jack Leach and Archie Vaughan and Shoaib Bashir in my side. So what am I going to do?
Yeah, produce a spin-friendly wicket.
Exactly. I'm going to produce an absolute raging Bunsen and nobody learns anything.
Although true. But part of the reasoning for the Kookaburra was to encourage spin as well as pace bowling. I think it's worked better in terms of encouraging spin, but it's certainly not encouraged pace. But the thing is, you can't just throw in a few Kookaburra rounds and suddenly produce a load of 90 miles an hour fast bowlers. Producing 90 mile an hour fast bowlers is a long-term process that goes much deeper into the system than having a few Kookaburra rounds. Potentially, in the long term, if you make other changes deeper in the system and help the production of fast bowlers at age group levels, potentially having those Kookaburra rounds in the long term might help a bit, in terms of those players' development. If some players do come through which have that potential, but it's the kind of thing which, if it is eventually going to work properly in all ways in terms of producing England players and producing positive results, it's going to have to be a very long-term experiment. And the problem is, county fans don't really have the patience for that because we're going to have to see a lot of dead draws in the interim.
Well, exactly. And Jason Kerr made the great point when he spoke to Gibbo at close of play yesterday, is that English kids are brought up on these, sort of April puddings that don't really get turned anywhere near the Wacker or wherever they play now, Optus Stadium. That's it's literally a million miles away from what we're playing on here. Yeah. So kids grow up and they're taught to bowl, line and length, move it a little bit, bowl it quick, but quick enough. There's no point trying to sprain a sinew going for that extra 10 mile an hour pace when you're not going to get it out the wicket. So if you're growing up like that, and all of a sudden you enter a professional environment, and you go, well, this is how I'm being successful, I'm going to carry on doing this. On pitches, there's no value in me, trying to bowl an extra 10 mile an hour because I get what I put into that is not reflected in what I get out.
And the world is a smaller place. If you're an elite performer or someone with high potential, there are opportunities to go and play in Australia and South Africa or wherever it might be over the winter. We don't need to try and turn... And it's great to have wider participation in cricket, as many people playing as possible, but it's a tiny, tiny subset of people who play cricket who are going to have the remotest chance of being able to bowl 85 to 90 miles an hour. So there are other ways of testing their skills in Australian conditions. The most obvious one is do it in Australia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't, it's less than a generation ago where we sent a side over with probably 2 quick bowlers in Finn, what you call out-and-out quicks in Finn and Tremlett, an orthodox finger spinner, and Broad and Anderson. 2 quick enough, but highly skillful bowlers. And what did that finish? 3-1?
Yep, we won that series. We won that series by bowling dry. We won that series by bowling line and length.
I remember Broad, Aggers was speaking to Stuart Broad, and he said, "Oh well, plan A, is to go out and swing it, and what's plan B?" And Broad said, "Well, no, plan A is to go out and bowl dry, and then if it swings, great. Using the swing is plan B. And that's always stuck to me for this day. I don't know why, it just sort of stuck in my head like a bit of an earworm. But you're absolutely right. I mean, there's more than one way to skin a cat, and ruining county championship cricket isn't probably the best way to do it, I would suggest.
Another thing that's frustrating, just sort of building on Dan's point about the time of year that you play the games, is that it seems like we're being given the Duke's ball in the time when it's hardest to play against the Duke's ball, and the Kookaburra ball at the time when it's as easy as possible to play against the Kookaburra ball. And isn't there a way of evening up the contest between bat and ball to make it more of a contest, if we are going to play with different balls? At the moment, you can't help feeling a bit sort of cynical that the poor old spectators get the worst of all worlds. You get these really boring long draws in the middle of the summer, and we get 2-day games at the start and the end of the season if the weather is normal.
I mean, the list of reasons to keep persevering with this project just seem to be diminishing by the second, really. I mean, if an email, I don't know how kind of contractually bedded in this is, but if an email went out to all 18 directors of cricket tomorrow from Rob, he went, Rob Keane went, sorry guys, made a bit of a big mistake here. Do we all agree? Should we just ditch the Kookaburra for the rest of the season? And all 18 replied back, yes. I mean, is it that simple? I think it's that simple. Okay, you're gonna have a few dozen boxes of Kookaburras sat gathering dust, but so what?
Yeah, I think it's unlikely, but I think when there's a will, there's a way, and I think there's a chance that if everyone agrees, we just don't bother with the Kookaburra for those 2 July rounds. The only reason I can think of not to ditch it would be some counties have made specific overseas signings that relate to having the Kookaburra.
That's what I mean. It would have to be a unanimous decision, I think.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just
unlike the entirety of the fixture list, where you only need 12 counties, but that's another topic.
Well, yeah, but anyway, we should come on to that in a minute. I mean, I had to have a think in the week. I said, Rob, we'll carry on playing county cricket with a Kookaburra ball if you want to play golf with the fucking thing. So that could be a happy compromise. Anyway, we still haven't finished talking about Notts. So, Notts all out 509. I mean, take nothing away from Slater and Haynes. Batted really well. You've got to get the runs. There's no such thing as easy runs in professional cricket. They both batted really well, and then so they were all out with 1 over to go. I wasn't particularly happy with the approach of Matt Henry going out there gung ho and trying to knock 36 runs out of that deficit in that single solitary over on Wednesday night. I just felt that it would be better to have that wicket intact for Thursday rather than having it not due to some injudicious stroke play on Wednesday night. I think it felt like it was a free wicket because we weren't going to lose an established batter, but no, it didn't come back to bite us, but sometimes these things do.
We knew because there was 1 over left that only 1 wicket could possibly fall. And I think obviously Henry was given permission to play like that. He did. I assume he didn't just do that of his own accord. But it was strange, particularly when he got to the last ball. Like, could he not have just blocked the last ball? It was weird. But I think we were just so. I guess we were so confident we'd be able to battle the following day. We weren't that bothered by the loss of 1 wicket. But it's still not ideal psychologically. Like, it just puts a few more jitters in you when you've lost 1 wicket overnight compared to none, doesn't it? So.
I mean, our dressing room would have been, did we do the right thing there? Well, maybe we didn't, thinking about it. And then, down in the bowels of the indoor school now where the visitors get changed, they would have been like, what do they do that for? We're going to go get 9 tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, Vic Marks' suggestion on the stream was send Aldridge out because it would have given him an opportunity to, a bit like Banton and Abel, try and play himself into form, play some shots the following morning, hang around there, and who knows, he could have got himself a big score,
a proper 100.
Yeah, so that was, but yeah, all of it in hindsight feels like overthinking, really.
Yeah, it did a bit. So as it was then, Sean Dixon and Tom Kohler-Cadmore straight out on, yesterday morning with the day to bat out. And we talked briefly about TKC earlier, but I just thought he played it to perfection. I mean, beat Farhan Ahmed out the attack. kept them having to sort of bowl the seamers. I thought he just played it absolutely to perfection and just knew his game down pat. I thought it was great. Really impressed.
Yeah, and I didn't see any of the innings, unfortunately, but from what I gather, it was a very well measured knock. I mean, there's a fine line between over attacking and sort of, teeing off, but not recklessly, as Shane Warne famously put it once.
Yeah.
And we got to accept with TKC that sometimes he will mess it up, but there are other times where they'll play an absolutely spectacular innings, like we
Yeah.
saw the other day, like we saw yesterday. So
It's all right. Yeah, I am kind of aware of saying, oh, these hits, what is it? Yeah, 6 sixes, but if he top edges one and skies it like James Rew did, you think, oh, what are you doing, you bloody idiot? But on this occasion, I think, I don't think he gave a chance. I wasn't I kind of had it on.
No, I don't know. I don't think so.
He gave a chance and he just looked confident. And, that's part of the battle half the time is walking out there, we stood up really tall, adding another couple of inches to your height. I mean, he's a big lad anyway, TKC. Just being out there and kind of owning your space, if you like, and just, giving off the impression to the opposition that, didn't get me out today, boys. I'm in here for the long run. And if you bowl me a bad one, it is going in the car park. And that's pretty much what happened. Support as well from James Rew. Made 43 before he top edged the sweep. And then Tom Abel, 24 from 126 balls. Supported him through to whatever time it was, 10 to 5.
10 to 5.
Finally shook hands. I mean, I don't think there's no chance of any result once a positive result, a win for Somerset. I mean, I don't think there's any way we could have got enough in that time and bowled them out.
No, we could have lost it. There were times on the fourth day when I thought, are we going to regret not getting quite so many? And we're quite susceptible to losing wickets in clusters, aren't we? And TKC, as you say, although he didn't give a chance, he's I used to think this about Hildy, lovely to watch, but you feel like he's going to give you a chance at some point, and you always sort of feel that about TKC. So it would have been great for him and his kind of confidence to have batted all the way through the day. But
that was Tom Lammerby's job on the final day, I think, to bat pick out the whole field on the leg. So I'm sure that's not one that Lammers would be looking back too fondly on. But overall, I mean, it was just a case of the pitch. The pitch, if you didn't know, had previously had the Women's County Cup final day on it. I spoke to Nick Pepper just as he was packing away from the perambulation at tea on the first day. Oh, this is great. This is how protective Nick is of the square, right? So I'm sort of chatting to him. This was useful, and it goes, yeah, it was a Women's County Cup final day. Oh, right, yeah. It was probably going to try to get to rag of sort of the last day. He goes, yeah, it's going to be, oh, wait, get off. And I'm expecting, to see like, drunken yobbos on the other side of the square. One tiny little toddler has just kind of wandered into the stump and sort of the legs it off. So God bless you, Nick. He loves his square, and God forbid if you do accidentally wander on it, because you will get both barrels.
What did you make of the seagulls on the first day then?
Well, there was a big discussion in the press box. Gibbo suggested it was leather jackets, which are kind of like maggoty larva of something or other. I'm not sure, flying ants, whatever. But we were discussing various methods of pest control that could be employed, be that shotgun or any peregrine falcons or birds of prey that could be hired by the hour just to sort of swoop around and nab a few of the blighters. But yeah, it was quite because you get a really good view up there in the press box, and sometimes they kind of just fly past the window, and it's quite sort of beautiful as they just sort of glide in midair in a flock past the window, before they dive bomb you for your chips. But yeah, it's very strange. There weren't that many there the rest of the week. They were probably scared off by the school kids.
They were replaced by children. That's right, weren't they, on the 2 and 3?
Yeah. Oh dear. So yeah, I mean that leaves Somerset. Well, still, 33 points off Surrey, who managed to sneak ahead by scoring the small matter of 850 million against Durham, with Dom Sibley getting 100. And one stat I thought you were going to bring out, Dan, with the related Kookaburra ball ones, is the list of batters who got their highest championship score this week, i.e. Dom Sibley, Jake Libby, Adam Hose, I think Jack Haynes as well. Tom Kohler-Cadmore didn't get his top score, but I expect if he had batted for another hour, he probably would have done of 176. And there was about 5 or 6 more on there as well. I tell you, if I was the marketing director of Kookaburra, I'd be pissed off with everything that's going on at the moment. Because I've used Kookaburra gear pretty much all my playing career. And it's great. I love Kookaburra gear. Please send me some free bats, please, Kookaburra. But God, you got to be sat there seething, like going through social media, like fucking Kookaburra, bloody Kookaburra, ruining cricket, Kookaburra's ruining cricket. You think, they need to do something like where they call the balls a different brand. And I'm trying to think of another company that does
Seagull. Kookaburra's Australian.
The Seagull.
Oh yeah, the Kookaburras themselves, the birds, must not be very happy as well. They're getting a bad press.
Yes, I was trying to think of analogies. It's a bit like good old Bernie Ecclestone saying that, sorry lads, you've all got to race around in Land Rovers this year. Something like that. If you can think of analogies, please do send them in. But yes, unfortunately that was somewhat. Oh, go on. Sorry, Dan.
Just very quickly, you said we're 33 points behind. Sorry, I think we're 23, aren't we? Unless my maths is completely wrong.
Yeah, despite the fact that I have a good old watch a countdown every morning, you are. The pressure of trying to work out how quickly got to here, 23. Yeah, we've gained 10 points on them in like 5 seconds.
And at this point last season, how many points were we behind? Sorry, 23 points. And I know we didn't win it, but
we did. It's not a great president you said in there, Dan. But yeah, I understand. It's still on. It's still just about on, I think. I mean, the only thing that is slightly annoying is we've got only out of those sides above us, which are Surrey, Notts, and Sussex. We only play Notts again, and that is likely to be on. That's not Cook as well, is it? That one. 1, 2.
I think it is, isn't it? Because we've got Durham at home, and then
Notts away.
Notts away.
I mean, that's another reason why this is complete rubbish. This Kookaburra ball is, we're playing them twice with it, and we're playing. Oh, it's just without evening up. It just seems really, really stupid to me.
And it's now
anyway. Yes,
it's now 3 Somerset. Sorry, it's 3 Somerset Notts games that have been completely dead draws as well. Because both the game at Taunton last year and the game at Trent Bridge were utterly dead draws, and now this one has been as well. And the ones last year weren't even Kookaburra rounds. So we just have these games against Notts are not good at the moment.
The only saving grace I can, or the only kind of glimmer of hope that I'm clinging on to here is that Notts have got to go ahead of Surrey, so they may prepare something a little bit more spicy than we saw last year. So maybe this has kind of benefited us a little bit. I'm really clutching at straws here. But yeah, we only play Notts of the sides above us now. We don't play Surrey, we don't play Sussex. So it's going to be difficult for us to overhaul them. We're going to have to rely on other sides. But hey, it is what it is. If winning the championship was easy, we'd do it every year. And that was, of course, Matt Henry's last championship game of this current spell. He's got 3 more blast games. And then he's off to play in the series that's going to have the eyes of the cricketing world, New Zealand versus Zimbabwe.
Don't patronise the smaller nations.
I'm not patronising. I know, sorry, but I'm not expecting this to be a close run thing. I mean, surely New Zealand could have done what South Africa did to them a couple of years ago and just sent a complete second 11 over there to play.
Then how was Zimbabwe improved?
Well, by winning, I don't know.
They got to play the best teams when they can.
Well, that's true. That's true, I suppose. And I suppose Matt Henry will do a bloody hamstring, and then he won't be able to play in our Vitality Blast quarter-final. Touchwood, assuming we get there, or even finals day. Anything more on this then? If I talk about the Kookaburra ball anymore, I'm probably going to blow a gasket.
I'm done.
I'm done with that as well. Well, looking ahead then, we have got 3 blast games. Matt Henry's final 3 Vitality Blast games. Glamorgan tomorrow at the Cooper Associates County Ground. Double header against Hampshire Hawks on Sunday at Utilita Bowl. Don't call it the Utilita Bowl. And then double header against Essex Eagles at Taunton on Tuesday. Who doesn't love a Tuesday night double header? of T20 cricket. I don't really see any reason for rotation. One away game, which is Southampton, which isn't the most arduous trek. Maybe you may look at resting some of the bowlers who played in the game this week, some of the seamers. But looking at workloads, I mean, Henry, we already bowled one in, is Henry 26 overs, Overton 26 overs. I mean, really, if you say you bowl 26 overs in a 4-day game, that's not hitting a peak load or whatever it is you call it. So I think they'll probably will be good to play at least 2 out of 3. I thought Greg would be back, probably play all 3. I mean, side picks itself, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And Meredith's played every game so far, I think. So, I mean, we've got a few games coming up in quick succession, but if Meredith's played them all so far, then hopefully he won't need a rest.
He's had just had 2 weeks off, so there is that, I guess. Yep. So, yeah, I think. Well, that was nice and easy.
Yeah, I mean, it must be frustrating for Lammonby. It must be. I mean, and both the Roos are amazing people not to be considering putting in the team, given what they've both contributed over the last few days. Thomas Roo, in particular, and Jack Leach could do a job, especially at Hampshire. But I agree with you. Why change a winning team? And it wouldn't be fair on anyone that we were dropping out, I think. So just good to have strength in depth, I suppose, in case anyone has a niggle.
I mean, look, players can come in and step in to any of the particular roles that are kind of going at the minute. So like Lammonby will come in and open if needed. I think Roo would probably be better set playing the Tom Abel role in the middle order than Lammonby would. And then, you've got bowlers, you've got Miguel Pretorius to come in, you've got Leach, you've got Aldridge, I'm presuming going to be called him from Durham. The only other thing you could say is that, we have kind of effectively qualified. Do you want to give the guys like Language and Ogborn a go? That's the only advocation I can make for changing the team, is to give those guys some experience, because I think they both got big futures.
Well, we've got to secure a home quarterfinal first.
Yeah. Yes, we have.
I would say, on behalf of the bank manager.
I think we...
And the fans.
Obviously, yes.
I think we keep picking our strongest team, and then when it comes to it, though, if we come to a point where we do have a dead rubber or two, I'd love to see Ogborn in the side. I even would have probably had him in ahead of Davey. Like, I know, because Davey played a couple last games, didn't he, before we broke for the championship.
Yeah.
I would have probably picked Ogborn over Davey for those games. I just think at this point Davey can still do a job, but he is on the decline, sadly, at the moment. And Ogborn is on his way up, and he's done well in the second 11 T20 this year. I see Jake Ball is in the squad for tomorrow as well, and he did do all right in the Blast last year, but again, he's another player who's coming towards the end of his career. Ogborn is a real talent, and I would be surprised if he can't do at least as good a job as Ball or Davey for us in our Blast team. So I'd really like to see Ogborn play, regardless of whether it's a dead rubber or not. I'd love to see him play at some point if we do any rotation of the pace bowlers.
And also, with the gap between the end of the campaign and the quarterfinals being in September, you don't really need to worry about kind of the momentum being sucked out of you at the end of the group stage. Like a couple of years ago when you went, pretty much played your last group game, and then 3 days later you got quarterfinal, right? Keep the momentum going. No, it doesn't really matter. You could lose your last 3, and it's a distant memory as long as you get that home quarterfinal.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say, you could potentially say Glamorgan. I mean, we know we beat Glamorgan, but they're doing. Let's save them for Gloucester. There we go. And Essex. I mean, Essex. Christ, Essex could win a raffle if they bought all the bloody tickets in the book at the minute, and Gloucester are pretty poor. So I don't know. Maybe bring him in for Essex on Tuesday. Just my thoughts.
We'll see.
An email went out to members now. So moving on to this. Co-signed by both Jamie Cox and Sir Michael Barber. So I presume you're dead against all this, Peters. You think you couldn't put your name to it, and you're absolutely desperate for a reduction in cricket. Are we inferring that, or is this just not your area?
No. The president has no authority or formal powers whatsoever to do with the club. I am completely ceremonial, so any influence I have on any of this is completely behind the scenes. I have been encouraging of the club to be open about the situation that we find ourselves in, because I think it's important. You can't give a running commentary on these discussions and negotiations, but there's some really important principles that are contained in the letter that the club have been following through on and arguing strongly about. And I think in the past, when decisions were made and the basis on which they were made around, well, it wasn't the 100, it became the 100, but around that period when Somerset were in some difficult kind of negotiations there, the club never really wasn't quite transparent in quite the same way about our position relative. Now we can't. Our position is our position, and as I said earlier, you need 12 out of 18. What I think our members and supporters wouldn't thank us for would be for something to happen and it to look like we'd just gone along with whatever other people thought when we're making some strong arguments which may or may not carry the day. So I'm very pleased with the content of the letter and very pleased that the letter is out there and published, and hopefully as a consequence of that it will also illustrate to the supporters of other counties and give them some confidence in continuing to discuss with some of the other clubs who you might expect to be our allies on a number of these points that aren't necessarily 100% confident of taking that line at the moment. Yeah. So yeah, it's a good development, I think.
So if you haven't seen it, I did post the whole thing on Twitter pretty much as soon as I got it in my inbox. It is also now on the club website. And for me, the key points are that the powers that be at Somerset are not supportive of any reduction in cricket, whether that's Championship or Vitality Blast.
Unless we can see how that makes for a more coherent fixture list in which we're getting, competitive games with our best players there more of the time. So that's the place where we're not just saying, there should be this amount of cricket come what may. It's just the options that are being served up are not convincingly demonstrating why they are materially better than what we've got at the moment.
Yeah, because the problem is that there's obviously this kind of idea that we want to do 12 blast games and 12 championship games. The problem is there are no good formats for either of those competitions that fit 12 games. Both of them, all the options are just weird fudges. Like the blast, you play like a couple of random games against teams that are not from your group. And in the championship, like the championship, 14 is also not ideal, but at least with 14, there's a lot of cricket throughout. There's a good amount of cricket that members expect, and it's actually less than it used to be. And with 14, hang on, so I've lost my train of thought. But yeah, with all of these ideas that have 12 matches, they are all weird fudges. They involve like a weird final or two parallel divisions of 6 above another division of 6, or we could go to keeping the same format but having 12 games rather than 14, which makes it even more weirdly uneven than compared to what it is now. Just none of it is an improvement on what we've got. It's all about just reducing games for the sake of reducing games. And I know there are issues with workload, etc. But as Somerset sort of point out, like Somerset are capable of managing their players' workload themselves. They don't need the schedules to do it for them. And the players need to remember that if you reduce the number of county matches, then we might need less players. It could result in a few players becoming unemployed. That doesn't just apply to us, obviously. That applies across the country, players across the country. So none of it is better than what we've currently got, and it's all a weird budge, and it could all lead to going down even further. That Blast proposal, if it goes down to 12 games, it could very easily go down to 10 within a few years, because clearly that format it's 10 games, not 12 games. So they could easily just chop those off in the future as well. So yeah, none of it is positive for me.
No, you're right, and I totally echo your point about workloads and how they're being managed. I mean, just really kind of doing this every week and chatting about who we pick and who needs a rest. It is blindingly obvious that there are players who can go quite a while without playing any cricket, and then they come back in and they have maybe a heavy few weeks, and then they could have a week or so off. Players like Jake Ball's hardly played any cricket at all this year. Craig Overton is probably one who has played quite a lot and could do with a rest. But if you kind of look if you kind of then granularly sort of break down the games, you say, well, he's only bowled. He's going straight from a 4-day, back-to-back 4-day games into 3 blast games in 4 days. But you go, yeah, well, didn't really bowl a lot up at Edgbaston. Didn't really bowl a lot here at home. 2 of those blast games are at home, and one is only away at Hampshire, which is a fairly short away trip. So if you look at that, you say, well, yeah, that's fair enough. That's not particularly an onerous workload. I'm sure if he bowled 50 overs up at Edgbaston and 50 overs at Taunton this week, yeah, he'd be having a rest. But just using Craig as example, it's fine. Do you know what I mean? It's like you say, Dan, the clubs can work out when their players need a rest. Sometimes they preemptively rest them a little bit, which is a little bit annoying. But players will tell you if they need a rest, and 99% of the time, they will not be lying. Apart from 1% when they are. But then the physios and the data will normally back that up anyway. So I agree. I think this too much cricket thing is... I did put on Twitter, am I being cynical? Is it too much cricket or not enough money? But
I think our players to be fair to them have been great on this. They want to play cricket. They want to play for Somerset. Yeah. They would rather not be going on great long trips to the other side of the country and arriving back at 3:30 in the morning and then having one morning's training and playing another game at home or somewhere else the next afternoon. So, as I say, I think if there'd been a proposal that convincingly created more of a sense of appointment to view, and we all knew that, the Somerset games were going to be on Friday evenings and Sunday afternoons, or you've already kind of made a slight joke about the double header on a Tuesday against Essex. That's quite hard to sell if that fixture didn't exist, or it was in a rhythm of fixtures that were better spaced out. We would probably get more sponsors, more supporters through the gate and all the rest of it. But there's nothing on the table that is convincing. I think I'm moving house. I may be a bit more attracted to regional groups than I feel at the moment, but the idea of our rivalries being with Glamorgan and Worcester and not with Surrey and Kent and Middlesex, I just don't kind of recognise that at all. And I think our players want to be tested against the best in the biggest stadiums, and if all of that gets regionalised, then they rarely get to play in a packed Lords or a packed Oval, and it almost feels like all the noise was about we're going to have these wonderful best in class domestic competitions, but it sort of feels more like the FA Trophy, where teams play one another in places that are rather local to them, and then you have one national final over the top rather than the best against the best. So again, I'm glad that we're sort of holding out for something a bit more imaginative, even if it means a bit more travel. Again, but all these distances in the UK are tiny, relatively speaking, compared with what happens at the IPL or Australia,
well, exactly.
Where they're on a plane to go to every game.
I mean, is there any support for the status quo? I mean, is that likely? I'm not. I mean.
Well,
I think one of the problems is that the test grounds, the franchise, they have got all this cricket. They have got a lot of cricket, and it looks to them, different because they have got to fit in these games in a competition which we don't have, and our supporters don't get to see. So having a bit less of other cricket to create sort of breathing space for that, maybe that makes them more likely to support some of these options that don't work for us. That, I guess, that's a fear.
But that's the thing, isn't it? That's why bringing in the 100 was so flawed, because that has now made the 100 hosting counties think, oh, we could probably reduce the amount of county cricket across all formats. Whereas
Yeah,
we don't have the 100, so all we're doing is going from our baseline from 300 to less. Whereas they're going
yeah.
from what they had back to what they had 300 potentially, roughly, and like it's created, there was already two classes of county, but it's obviously the 100 has obviously exacerbated that,
There's,
and now
yeah, I
we've
mean,
got
there's more than two classes of county, because then at the other
yeah.
extreme, you've got counties that lose money every time they play cricket. So the idea of playing two fewer games or whatever it might be, so that you don't have to lose that money, is kind of attractive, which is a perverse incentive that penalises successful clubs like ours that are trying to generate revenue and make money. Sometimes at the irritation of our members when you see the relative prices at sort of some other places, but to reward not playing as opposed to investing in games. Again, I think the letter is really strong in articulating, we're a cricket club. We're here to
Yeah.
play cricket. We want to make money from playing cricket and reinvest that into the game. It's just, the economics are really challenging even for us, because so much comes through the ECB and the media rights in the end. So we haven't got a veto on this. We can just continue, I think, to try and take the high ground and be the ones who are arguing for a really game that is flourishing at every level.
So what are the time scales on this thing? Because it seems to me incredibly daft that we're voting on what next season is going to be. So sides now, Leicestershire having a great campaign in Division 2, fully expecting, if they play well and win all these games at the start of the season, they'll get promoted. But they could be, if things go, they could ostensibly be fourth in Division 1 or fourth in Division 2 on how this pyramid could easily look. It's
Yeah,
I mean, if you do go 8 in Division 1, I like 8 in Division 1 because that then gives you 14 games playing each other home and away. Would you then relegate 3 from Division 1 and promote 1 from Division 2, or
that would
4 and
be
2? Or...
that they did similar back in 2016. They went from 9 and 9 to 8 and 10 with 8 on top, and then obviously they reverted it to 10 on top for 20. Well, it was going to be 2020, but then it became 2022. But yeah, you'd have to. But the thing is, you cannot. I keep banging on about this on Twitter. You cannot change the number of promotion and relegation places during the season. Any change to promotion and relegation should happen next season. If they decide on doing 8 on top, 10 below, or a 12-team Division 1 split into 2 groups of 6 with 6 below, they need to bring that in 2027, not in 2026, because we need
Yeah.
to have a season where we know what we're playing for. Like, it would be absolutely ridiculous if Leicestershire. I mean, I'm sure Leicester will be going up. I'm sure they won't vote for 8 on top, 10 below. But like, if imagine that scenario though, if where a team does win Division 2, but then is told, actually, sorry, you can't get promoted, or a team that finishes second in Division 2, they've been playing for second, knowing the top two is what you get, what you need to get promoted, and then they're suddenly told, oh, actually, sorry, you're not promoted this year. Like, can you imagine that happening in football? The uproar that would happen. Like, it wouldn't even be considered in
Well,
football. But in cricket, the ECB just don't care enough, I don't think, about these things, which they think are small things, but actually they matter a lot. They're about integrity of our competitions.
I mean, this point, it just frustrates and baffles me that we sit here every year with rumours and innuendo about what's going to change in the schedule over the various competitions. Football fans don't get this. Rugby fans don't get this. Curling fans don't get this. Golf fans don't cover the popular league sports. Now, you know what I mean? The hockey fans don't get this. It's the same year on year on year. There might be minor tweaks. here and there, but broadly it's always the same. The football season starts in August. There's 20 teams in the Premier League. They play each other home and away once. They go into the FA
Imagine
Cup in
that.
the third round in August. In January, sorry. The final.
Well, yeah,
I mean,
up to a point. I mean, there have been all sorts of things like abolishing replays and
yeah, that's what I'm not saying that
that.
they haven't, but they're minor little
Yeah,
details. The
yeah.
broad structure of it is 99% left untouched.
And I think the original plan was that this was all pretty straightforward, that the counties would work it out for themselves, and we would have known by now what was going to happen, and then they might just about got away with it for next season. But I think it's really hard to argue against Dan's point now, and there isn't a decision yet, so we'll see.
And this has been talked about for several years now, the potential of changing the format. The reason that the format hasn't changed is because there aren't any good alternatives. Like what we've got
Yeah.
now, I know it is what we've got now is far from perfect. If you go on the assumption that the 100 is there and it's there to stay for 4 weeks during the summer holidays, the schedule is about as good as it can be. I'd like to see a bit more like weekend cricket, weekend championship cricket, that sort of thing. But broadly, when things are played, are how I would do it. And I know some want to see championship cricket during the 100. I understand that, although I don't agree. For the most part, it's basically how I would do it because you're kind of forced into doing certain things the way I see it. You're forced to do the One Day Cup during the 100. You're forced to have the Blast in sort of June and July. You're forced to, unfortunately, have a load of championship in April and May. In either world, if the 100 didn't exist, you'd have more One Day Cup in April and May and more championship at the height of summer. But I think that the format is as good as it can be at the moment, and I think all these new options are not an improvement on what we've got now. Because while it's imperfect what we've got now and it's full of compromises, there's a reason it has evolved to where it is, and it's about as good as it can be, I think.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it is a case of better the devil you know. I mean, if you look at the cases for a reduction in cricket, well, what are they? They say it's player burnout. Well, which players are we talking about then? Are there any kind of case studies that you can be pointed to, or is it just, well, there is quite a lot of cricket players might get tired? Well, there's options to mitigate that. You could, I don't know. There's so much money floating around in the game. I mean, Christ, Chuck, say to each county you've got to have a minimum playing staff of 22, and if you can't manage that, well, here's a couple of $100,000 every, to kind of help you with that. Maybe I don't know, but I think your point is a really valid one, Dan. If there's nothing, if there's no viable option to change it, then don't change it.
Yeah, and we shouldn't forget
if we are committed to 18 counties, and that's another hard decision. I feel a deep sense of loyalty to my friends at every other county, but some of these counties are far from, a lot further than us from being economically viable. So you could imagine solutions in which there were fewer first class counties and a sort of second division before the counties, and that might liberate some other options. I haven't got my head around it or tried to do it because I don't like to think of Leicestershire would have been an obvious county to go, and look how well they're doing this season.
Yeah,
I've made this point again. I'm in kind of repeat mode today. My philosophy is, if you're the ECB, you want to be growing the number of counties by promoting the game properly.
Yeah.
We've got 18 now. Could we have 25 first class counties in 20 years' time? What do we need to do to make that happen? What do we need to do to grow the game, make it so successful and popular that we expand it rather than contract it into these 8 bloody walking crisp packets that we've got at the minute?
And one more point. We should all remember as well, there's been no sudden increase in cricket in recent years. Like, the amount of cricket's been going down in this century. The amount of county cricket has gone down. The number of championship games has gone down from 16 to 14. The amount of List A cricket has gone down slowly since the start of the century. I know T20's come in, but at the start of the century, there was like 20 List A games per year. In 2010, there were 16 T20 matches and 12 List A matches and 16 championship matches. All of that has since gone down to 14 championship, 8 rather than 12 List A, and 14 rather than 16 T20. So there's been no sudden increase in the last few years. And even the 100 has not actually caused an increase in the amount of cricket because everyone who plays in the 100 doesn't play in the One Day Cup. And in fact, if you play in the 100, you play less
Yeah,
cricket because you're on the pitch
yeah.
for 200 balls for a match as opposed to 600 balls for a One Day Cup game. So even the 100 hasn't caused an increase in workload for players. So although what has caused an increase in workload for players is obviously some of them choosing to play some franchise cricket in the winter, which is absolutely fair enough if they want to do that. But that doesn't mean that we should be reducing our system to accommodate some players going
No.
abroad in the winter. So I just can't see the logic at all, really.
I mean, that's another thing about this is, you see season 6 months, you get 6 months off playing. You're not fully active for that whole 6 months, and you get 6 months off anyway. I know you're training and everything, but you're not playing. So yeah, I'm not fully sold on the too much cricket argument, I do have to say.
And we have a short season where the weather is generally, the weather is unreliable. We need to play as much cricket as possible so we can pick up the good weather. Like if we reduce the amount of matches significantly, we might end up missing the really sunny periods. Like the advantage of playing a lot throughout the summer is that we are actually making sure we're catching the sun and not missing out on the good periods of hot weather like we've had recently. So yeah, I mean, and as you say, it is a short season. They get 6 months off. It's a shorter season than other sports, so there's a reason we do pack in a fair amount.
Oh, I feel like we could chat about this for a long time. Only one listener response to my plea for listeners' questions this week. I suspect they knew what we were going to be talking about and decided not to poke the beast, so to speak. Rob Reed, in one sentence or less, then, guys, what would you do to make Championship cricket look more like Test cricket, i.e., more spin, more 85-mile-an-hour bowling, higher first innings scores, more hundreds and hundreds and 50s? I'll start. I think a lot of Test match cricket is to do with the pitches. I think they're more conducive to fast bowling. I think counties generally have their Test pitch, which they manicure and lovingly tend to for 11 months and 2 weeks of the year, and it's just put on display for the world to see for 5 days. The pitch we're seeing at Edgbaston today is not typical of the pitches that you would generally see at Edgbaston. Most of the ones that, if you look at finals day being Edgbaston's kind of second biggest event of the year, it's normally nothing like the pitches you see for international cricket. Point about quick bowling, I think we've addressed that before. If you're not getting the response from the pitches, you're not going to bother trying to bowl at 85 mile an hour. I don't think we do see a decent amount of hundreds and 50s. I think sometimes what separates the top players from the really good world-class players is their concentration and what they've got up here in the old grey matter rather than their sort of natural ability. And I think the ability to play long innings is something that is far more valuable as a Test player than kind of natural ability. That ability just concentration, like Root, is phenomenally talented, but boy, he can bat all day as well. Alistair Cook would be sort of a prime example of that. Not particularly naturally talented or a flair player, but just had the concentration and the bloody mindedness to bat for 2-3 days if he needed to. That's my take.
I mean, for the sake of being controversial, but this could open up a whole new podcast. A bit like we should be growing the game, Sheps.
Yeah.
I like the idea of Somerset being a global team and playing South Australia, or whoever winning the Pakistan equivalent of Pakistan and India county cricket leagues or whatever. I mean, I was horrified by that suggestion. There could be some international tournament and it would be the 100 franchises that would compete in it. But that another way of testing and developing our county cricket skills in other environments would be to play games in other environments. Tricky for the supporter, but we might be able to afford one trip a year to somewhere to the West Indies. If it's to follow Somerset, wouldn't that be amazing? So there is a kind of worldview that could see something like that developing, and we're a million miles away from anyone ever thinking or suggesting it. But that's another possible answer to that question. We play as a team in in other conditions and hone our skills there as well as Taunton. Now, unfortunately, we have a pretty poor away record, don't we? Even in England, never mind the rest of the world. But perhaps that's what we need. We need to be tested in different conditions.
I mean, if you could make that happen, I mean, let's say if there was a way you could do it, you could play 3 4-day games in 21 days, 3 weeks and a bit. Try and work out some kind of competition rules for that. 6 first class. I'd love that. That'd be great. That'd be ideal. I'd like that. I'm mentally planning.
To be
my
continued.
This is going to work just because I want to go to the West Indies, Somerset now.
Yeah, make a proposal.
Oh, definitely. I'll think about it. Right. Have we got any other business before we knock this on the head? Oh, the Women's Blast resumes as well. The women are up at Durham tomorrow, playing a double header up there. Obviously, then they're at Hampshire with the men on Sunday, and then the double header at Essex or at Taunton against Essex on Tuesday. So best of luck to Sophie Luff and her team after a bit of a break. Dan, I've got some news for you.
Oh.
You need to raise your bat. This is your 100th appearance on Always Look on the Bright Side of Life.
Brilliant.
I was doing a spreadsheet for something or other because I was trying to work out when our 150th is, and it's in a couple of weeks. It's when we're scheduled to do the Saturday morning recording after the championship game against Durham is finished. So Dan, you're on. You're on dead on 100. Peter, do you want to have a guess as how many you were on?
Oh, I would have thought about 15.
No, 30. You've done
30.
30. Yeah.
Wow.
Your debut was. Let me just find it a second. This is thrilling for our listeners. Do you want to have a guess when your debut was? Oh, I don't know. I've got the date here. When's the date? Oh yeah. Have a guess.
I don't know. 4 years ago, 2021. June 2021.
Oh, have you got it? Yes, it was September 2020. Oh no, wait. How many? Oh, I can't.
I feel like I was a listener for quite a long time before I was allowed to appear.
You were 30th of June 2021. In the episode, is everybody just as miserable as us? So there we go. So
Nothing
don't raise your
changes.
bat. Keep your head down. Only get 50 very soon.
Yeah, I'm going to go on for the daddy.
So if you have got any ideas, what we can do for our 150th episode, I was thinking about recording it live at the ground somewhere, but
Could we get Jack Russell to paint us?
we could do. Would he do that?
Might be a bit expensive.
Bearing in mind how rude we've been about his beloved Gloucestershire for 147 consecutive episodes. He could probably do like really mean painting of us. Like you could make me look like I've got a really big nose, and he could make you look like you've got a really awful shirt on, Peter, and all mad stuff like that. Right. On that note, then, on that bombshell, we'll leave it for another week. We've got Don Topley on next week, so let's, for God's sake, hope that we beat Essex on Tuesday, or cricket's most insufferable man will probably be even more insufferable. Only joking, Don. We love you, really. All right. Thanks for listening, and see you at the ground tomorrow. Ta-ra.
See you.